The look on my son-in-law's face when my lawyer, Marcus, slid that itemized invoice for $128,450 across the mahogany table is something I'll carry with me to the grave. Mark's face went from a smug, self-assured bronze to a sickly, curdled milk white in about 3 seconds flat. He looked at my daughter, Chloe, expecting her to jump in and save him, but for the first time in 3 years, the room was dead silent. He'd spent months telling me I was out of touch and that my property needed a modern touch, but he'd forgotten one very important detail. Everything he was standing on belonged to me. But to understand why he had no one to blame but himself, I need to take you back to the beginning. I'm 64 years old. I spent 40 of those years running a precision machining business. In that world, 1,000th of an inch is the difference between a perfect part and a piece of scrap metal. It teaches you patience. It teaches you to measure twice and cut once. And it teaches you that if the foundation isn't level, the whole building is going to lean eventually. When my wife Sarah passed away 6 years ago, she left me with 5 acres of beautiful Oregon land and a dream we'd shared for decades. We'd always wanted a proper English-style greenhouse, not one of those plastic kits you buy at a big box store, but a real structure. Steel-framed, tempered glass, climate-controlled, with a stone foundation. I spent 3 years and $120,000 of my retirement savings building that greenhouse. It was my sanctuary. It was where I grew the rare orchids Sarah loved, and the heirloom tomatoes that tasted like my childhood. It wasn't just a building. It was a memory of the woman I'd spent my life with. The trouble started about 2 years ago when Chloe married Mark. Now, I wanted to like Mark, I really did, but Mark is what I call a lifestyle architect. He doesn't actually produce anything, he just takes pictures of himself looking successful and posts them online for people he doesn't know. He's a fitness influencer, which apparently means his entire career depends on lighting and expensive gym equipment he can't afford. When they fell on hard times because Mark's brand wasn't scaling, Chloe came to me in tears. They were going to lose their apartment. Being a father, I did what fathers do. I told them they could move into the guest cottage on my property, rent-free, for 1 year so they could save for a down payment on their own place. That should have been my wake-up call, but I kept telling myself it was just a phase and that family helps family. If that was all, just a bit of arrogance and some free rent, I probably would have let it go. But then came the first Thanksgiving they spent at the house. We were sitting at the table and Mark was looking out the window at the greenhouse, which was glowing beautifully in the twilight. "You know, Arthur," Mark said, wiping some gravy from his lip with a smirk, "that glass house is a bit of an eyesore. It's very Victorian. It really dates the property. If you leveled that and put in a sleek, modern structure, maybe something with black steel and floor-to-ceiling mirrors, it would actually add some value to this place." I felt a twinge in my chest, but I kept my voice low. "That greenhouse cost more than your last 3 cars combined, Mark, and it's not for sale, nor is it for value. It's for my peace." Chloe didn't defend me. She just patted Mark's hand and said, "Dad's just sentimental, honey. He likes his old things." Old things was the word they started using for everything I owned. My records, my tools, my house. I started noticing small changes. Mark would move my things in the garage to make room for his protein powder shipments. He'd park his branded SUV right on the lawn because it got the best light for his morning videos. When I asked him to move it, he'd roll his eyes like I was an old man complaining about the weather.
And that's when I realized they didn't see me as their father or father-in-law. They saw me as a bank account with a guest house. The disrespect hit a fever pitch 3 months ago. Mark started a 90-day transformation series for his followers. He complained constantly that the local gym was too crowded and that the lighting was trash for his content. He started dropping hints that I should convert my workshop into a gym for him. When I told him no, that I still used my lathes and mills for hobby work, he didn't take it well. He told Chloe I was being selfish and stifling his career growth. Then came the invitation. My old business partner Jim invited me to a 10-day fly fishing trip in Alaska. No cell service, no emails, just the river. I needed it. Before I left, I sat Chloe and Mark down. I told them I'd be gone and that the only thing they needed to do was make sure the automated watering system in the greenhouse didn't glitch. "Don't touch anything else," I said firmly, "especially not the greenhouse." Mark gave me a thumbs up. "Relax, Pop, we've got it under control. Enjoy the old man trip." Something in me shifted that day. I didn't say a word, but as I drove to the airport, I called my security company. I had cameras installed on the perimeter of the property years ago, but I'd never felt the need to check them from my phone. I made sure the cloud recording was active. I had a gut feeling that Mark's under control meant something very different from mine. I spent 10 days in the wilderness. When I got back to the bush plane base and regained a signal, my phone nearly vibrated out of my hand. There were dozens of notifications from my security system. I opened the app, my heart hammering against my ribs. I rewound the footage to day 3 of my trip. I watched as a demolition crew, a group of guys in unmarked vests, pulled up to my property. I watched Mark standing there with the clipboard, gesturing toward the greenhouse like he owned the damn state of Oregon. I watched as they broke the tempered glass. I watched as the steel frames, which Sarah and I had picked out together, was twisted and dragged away like scrap metal. By day 7, a concrete slab had been poured. By day 9, a prefabricated black-paneled modern studio was being bolted into the ground. Mark had demolished a $120,000 custom-built greenhouse to put up a $15,000 glorified shed so he could film himself doing squats. I didn't call him. I didn't text Chloe. I sat in the airport lounge for 4 hours, staring at the wall. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was cold. I was the coldest I've ever been. I realized that as long as I acted like a nice, sentimental old man, they would continue to treat me like a rug. I spent the next 2 days in a hotel near the airport getting everything in order. I called Marcus, my attorney. I called the contractor who had originally built the greenhouse. I called the Botanical Society to get a valuation on the rare orchids that had been tossed into a dumpster like common weeds. They had no idea what was coming. None of them did. When I finally drove up my driveway, I saw it. The Apex Performance Lab, as the sign on the door read. It was a hideous black box that clashed with every line of my 1920s farmhouse. Mark was inside, shirtless, filming a video. Chloe was holding a ring light. I walked inside my own house, poured a glass of bourbon, and waited. 10 minutes later, they came bursting in, grinning. "Surprise!" Chloe shouted, looking a little nervous, but mostly excited. "Dad, we knew you'd be resistant, so we just took the initiative. Look how much better the yard looks. Mark's brand is already seeing a huge jump in engagement because of the new background." Mark stepped forward, looking smug. "I told you, Pop, out with the old, in with the new. I even did you a favor and cleared out those dusty old plants. They were a total fire hazard anyway. You're welcome." I looked at him. I didn't blink. I didn't raise my voice. I just took a sip of my drink and said, "I hope the lighting is good, Mark, because those are the most expensive videos you're ever going to film." He laughed, a loud, grating sound. "What's that supposed to mean? Don't tell me you're going to sue your own family." "No," I said quietly. "I'm going to hold my family accountable. There's a difference." I told them we'd be meeting at Marcus's office the following morning to discuss the future of the property. Mark actually thought I was going to sign the house over to them. He spent the evening talking about how they'd remodel the kitchen next. The next morning, we sat in that mahogany-lined conference room. Marcus, a man who has no soul when it comes to litigation, didn't even say hello. He just laid out the folder. Marcus started, his voice as dry as parchment. "In the state of Oregon, the destruction of a permanent structure valued over $1,000 without the owner's consent is considered first-degree criminal mischief. It's a Class C felony." Mark's smirk flickered. "I'm his son-in-law. I live there. It's a family matter." "Actually," Marcus continued, "you are a licensee under the guest house agreement Arthur had you sign when you moved in. Paragraph 12, which I'm sure you didn't read, explicitly states that any alteration to the grounds or structures without written consent from the owner is a breach of contract and results in immediate termination of the license, as well as full liability for restoration." I leaned forward. The room felt very small. "You didn't just move some dirt, Mark," I said. "You destroyed a custom-engineered structure. You destroyed a collection of orchids that took me 15 years to cultivate. Some of those were mother plants worth $4,000 each." Marcus slid the bill across. $120,000 for the structure, Marcus read out. $8,450 for the botanical loss, $2,000 for the debris removal, and $15,000 for the estimated cost of returning the soil to its original state after we tear down your lab. Mark's jaw literally dropped. He looked at the total. $145,450. You're kidding, Chloe whispered, her eyes welling up. Dad, we don't have that kind of money. We're your family. Family doesn't destroy memories for engagement, Chloe. Family doesn't treat a father like a nuisance in his own home. Mark tried to stand up, his face turning that bright, angry red he gets when he's denied something. This won't hold up. You can't prove I didn't have permission. It's my word against yours. Marcus didn't even look up from his notes. He just turned a laptop around and pressed play. It was the security footage, high definition, with audio. It captured Mark telling the workers, yeah, the old man's gone. He's senile anyway. He won't even notice it's gone until it's too late. Just get it down before he gets back. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the sound of a man realizing his brand was about to include a criminal record. Now, I said, my voice calm and steady, I have 2 documents here. The first is a formal demand for payment. If you don't sign a confession of judgment for the full amount, Marcus will be filing a police report for felony vandalism by the end of the hour. You'll be evicted today, and I will pursue every cent, even if it means garnishing your influencer checks for the next 30 years. Mark's hands were shaking. And the second? The second is an eviction notice and a mutual release. You leave the property by sunset. You leave the gym equipment behind. I'll sell it to recoup some of the loss. You never set foot on my land again. And Chloe, if you stay with him, that includes you. I'll settle for the insurance payout on the structure, but you'll be cut out of my will entirely. You've shown me what you value, and it isn't me.
The fallout was messy. Chloe cried, Mark screamed, and for a few days they tried to blast me on social media. But it's hard to get sympathy when your content involves destroying a widower's memorial to his late wife. Even his followers turned on him when this senile clip leaked. I might have had a hand in making sure that video found its way to the right people. Mark and Chloe are living in a cramped 1-bedroom apartment now. Mark had to get a real job at a big box gym, ironically, where he spends his days wiping down machines for people who actually pay their own way. Chloe calls me every Sunday now. She's apologetic, she's rethinking things, and she's finally realizing that her husband's vision was nothing more than a house of cards. I'm rebuilding. The new greenhouse is going to be even better than the last one. I hired the same crew and we're using the original blueprint Sarah and I drew up. It's going to take time and it's going to take work, but I've got plenty of both. Sometimes you have to tear down the rot to see what's worth keeping. My property is quiet again. The lawn is green, the birds are back, and there isn't a single ring light in sight. It's funny how much more you can hear when people stop shouting over you. I've regained my peace, my dignity, and my garden. And honestly, that's worth every penny.